Hello, and welcome to today's webinar on the topic of substance abuse in the workplace. This is brought to you by the Massachusetts Department of Developmental Services and produced in conjunction with the Center for Developmental Disabilities Evaluation and Research. My name is Courtney Dutra. I'm from the Center for Developmental Disabilities Evaluation and Research, and I will provide a basic overview of today's topic, and then I will turn it over to our two main speakers. Lorraine Woodson is the Director of the Office of Diversity, Equal Opportunity, and Civil Rights for the Mass Department of Developmental Services, and Paul Murray, the Director of Clinical Services for Hogan Regional Facility. Both of our speakers have decades of experience working in the field of intellectual and developmental disability, as well as broad health and human service management experience. They will share expert information on approaching staff and managing substance abuse in the workplace. The audience for today's training are managers and supervisors. This includes department heads, unit directors, division directors, nurse managers, and area office staff. The objectives today are for managers and supervisors to learn examples of typical behavioral and performance-related signs of impairment, language and strategies for approaching staff and talking about substance abuse, as well as their role and responsibility in managing substance abuse in the workplace. So before we begin, I thought it'd be helpful to clarify what we mean by substance abuse. So when we say substance abuse, we mean taking a drug in a different way or in a greater quantity than intended. With opioids, this includes taking the drugs without a prescription. People can become physically or psychologically dependent. This is characterized by the need to satisfy cravings or avoid withdrawal symptoms, and then addiction is marked by a change in behavior caused by the biochemical changes in the brain after continued substance abuse. Let's consider the impact of substance abuse in the workplace. Certainly the Commonwealth values employees and their unique contribution, and the vast majority of staff are committed, responsible, well-meaning people who are trying to do the best for the people we support. However, substance abuse creates risk for the employee and for others. How? Someone who is abusing substances may not think as clearly as they once could. They may show poor judgment, react slower, engage in poor decision making, or engage in risky behaviors. And when you think of all the tasks that employees are asked to perform on a daily basis, from tying down the wheelchair to administering medications correctly to driving safely, it's not hard to understand why you would want individuals who are thinking clearly and making good decisions. And this affects the workplace in a number of potential ways. There is a significant impact potentially on the individuals who receive services by jeopardizing their health, wellness, and safety. Substance abuse may make employees more likely to commit critical errors, for example, in medication administration by giving the wrong medication to the wrong person or the wrong dose. It may also make employees more likely to engage in unsafe practices. For example, if an individual has a dining protocol in place that specifies food texture, consistency, or size, and the employee neglects to follow that, that could be an increased choking risk for the individual. There may also be significant impacts on program operations. So substance abuse may make somebody more likely to call in late at the last minute or arrive late regularly, or simply just not be present at work and have consistent absenteeism. May also engage in incomplete job duties. For example, may not do their documentation thoroughly or correctly, and this impacts other coworkers because those duties will fall on other employees. And there may also be a risk that someone could be stealing prescription medication from other employees who use the medication or from the consumers themselves. So when you think about who abuses substances, we do get information from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. This is a survey of the U.S. population that asks individuals about their drug habits and use. This is the percentage of people who indicated illicit drug use in the past month, adults aged 18 to 64 who were employed full-time by different industry categories. And this data here is from 2008 to 2012. So I circled two of the industries that I think are relevant for today's conversation: management and healthcare and social assistance. As we go through this today, keep in mind that people may be struggling with dependence or addiction to opioids, and this is a problem they never intended to have. Opioids are highly addictive. Anyone is at risk for becoming addicted to opioids. A recent study in the Journal of the American Medical Association Internal Medicine showed that more than half of chronic abusers, these are people who took pills for at least 200 days during the past year, more than half of that group received those pills from prescriptions that were written for themselves or written for friends and family. So sometimes prescription drugs can be the gateway to the opioid addiction. And on average, almost 9% of the people surveyed in the National Survey on Drug Use and Health indicated that they used illicit drugs in the past month, and almost 10% of the people surveyed indicated they were dependent on or abused alcohol or illicit drugs in the past year. Locally, about 4 people die every day in the Commonwealth from opioid abuse, and I've listed the two references there if you'd like to go read more about either of those two facts. So now I'm going to turn this over to Lorraine, who will talk about the signs and symptoms of substance abuse.
Hello, Courtney. Thank you for handing this off to me. And I truly hope everyone is absorbing what's going on here and have questions for us later on. Bill, I know Ben Huff covered some of this information earlier, but I just want to hit it again for you, okay? It's how to recognize when someone has an addiction problem. So I just want to review this with you again. If someone is under the influence, you may, I guess many will see pen pupil. The black part of their pupils would be very small, pinpoint, and the person may be lethargic. I need to put a pin here for you guys and stop talking about some signs, because remember this, there is this disclaimer. Symptoms can be also indicative of other diseases. For example, I like to talk about my son because I'm very proud of him. He has MS. When he was first diagnosed with MS, he was falling down, and people literally thought he was drunk. So therefore, there was that prejudgment. The judgment, believe me, was very hard on him. We as managers and supervisors have to remember we may see something that looks like a sign of a substance abuse, but it actually could be another disease. Someone who's falling, sweating, maybe depressed mood, itching, that could be eczema. So please just know that if you see someone and you may think they have a substance abuse, talk to your HR or talk to your manager before you really make that judgment call. You just want to have that second thought. I'm always talking about your first thought and your second thought. So before you jump to the second thought, have a conversation with someone. There's usually some behavioral changes that you notice. There could be increased patterns of calling in sick, missing work, being late, frequently calling in sick on Mondays or holidays. Now, we know there are folks who do that ordinarily, and they have no illness and no substance abuse going on. It's just what they need to do. But remember this, we want to look into that. As managers, it's our responsibility to check in with employees who are doing that. So some of these patterns may be a red flag, but remember there are occasional incidents, and these tend to be existing employees and not new employees. So let me say that again. We're not necessarily talking about new employees. We're talking about employees that we know. They have a set way they do things, and all of a sudden they're not doing it the same way. Our next slide, I'm going to be talking about work performance issues. Yes, this comes up, around the EPRS and the ACEs. You want to really make sure when you're talking about someone having trouble completing routine tasks, making job errors, these things can be indicative of maybe a substance abuse, or maybe someone's just in the wrong job. Just be mindful of that, okay? Managers, I want you to always check in with your supervisors when you know that you've gone to the employee, you've talked to the employee, you've provided the tools to the employee, and they keep making these minor mistakes. And they actually just seem kind of lethargic when you're talking to them about it, and they don't seem to really care, or they're not with you when you're talking to them. So this could be a time that you want to really have a conversation with your manager before you make any kind of referrals. And a lot of these personality changes could be about erratic behavior. All of a sudden, a quiet person is loud, or the loud person is quiet and withdrawn and not bringing in the coffee anymore. So, you want to look at that, okay? We do have a drug-free workplace policy. Listen, we have loads of policies. I ask managers and supervisors to try to keep these policies within their desk or within arm's length at least. If you don't have a copy, you probably can get it from your human resources, or you can ask your manager if they can help you find these policies. It could also be in the employee handbook, the manager's code of conduct, so that you can get some information and just have it in your toolkit. So what does that drug-free workplace policy really talk about? Well, it's a longer policy than we have here, but the summary is the Commonwealth has a drug-free workplace policy that seeks to ensure a safe, healthy, and productive work environment for all employees. That's from the frontline staff to management. While on duty, no employee shall consume or use alcohol, intoxicants, or narcotics, or any controlled substance. No employee shall report to work under the influence. Now, I know many of you going, what about my prescription drugs? Benadryl makes me sleepy. So these are things that we know happens, and there are exceptions to those. So please be mindful. If you have questions, when in doubt, ask someone. When in doubt, ask someone. Usually we have our local practices. Frontline staff may not understand the nuances of the drug policy. Be as clear and distinct as possible when you're discussing this policy. Listen, in our workplace, that at least 65% of our staff, their native language is not English. So you want to make sure that when you're discussing this in your meeting or your one-on-one, or if you're doing an open meeting, that everyone understands. They're not just shaking their head yes. You really want to hit it. You want them to understand that you care as a manager for them, but they have to get help, because our first job, why we were hired, were to take care of individuals that we're serving. You want to contact HR if you suspect problems, or you just, you're noticing, even when you're talking about it in your meetings, that folks, a certain person is just not with you. So you want to actually kind of make sure you're on the right track by talking to HR first. We want to reduce the stigma by encouraging sensitivity to addiction issues among colleagues. Listen, addiction, people don't want to be addicted. That's not what people want. It happens. They get addicted because they had a bad back injury and they had to take pain pills. Sometimes you got to understand it's not a bad thing. It's an addiction that can be a disability. So therefore, I'm going to turn it over to Paul right now, because he has some more information he wants to give to you about what do you do if you suspect someone is abusing substances. Please take notes.
Thank you, Lorraine. Let's continue to talk about substance abuse in the workplace. What do you do if you suspect someone is abusing substances? Before you begin, examine your own biases that can sometimes interfere with good judgment. Keep an open mind until you have more information. Keep personal opinions to yourself and have empathy. Consider your approach. There's a balance between safety and human-first philosophy. Most important is the safety and the well-being of the individuals we support. Approach employees with empathy, compassion, and understanding. Has the employee behavior risen to the level of immediate action, or are you merely concerned? Concerning behavior doesn't yet require disciplinary action, but you are concerned about the employee. Establish a good rapport and send the message that I'm here and available if they need to speak. Conduct regular check-ins with the person. Offer fact-based assessments. I noticed that you fell asleep in yesterday's meeting. Is everything okay? Your paperwork was late this month, and that's not like you. Continue to assess the situation. Assess recent absence and tardiness, if any. Review documentation and other routine tasks. Has the performance worsened recently? Are there patterns of missing medications on certain shifts or other unusual occurrences? Do multiple supervisors report problems with the same employee? Have the conversation. Keep personal opinions to yourself. Talk with the employee about what you see, not what you think. Use fact-based assessments and restrict examples to work settings. I noticed that you were late multiple times this month. Be clear and distinct to account for differences in language and interpretation. Have empathy, but don't encourage oversharing. If the employee discloses abuse, consult with Human Resources. Refer the employee to the Employee Assistance Program for help and treatment. Understand that the employee may need accommodations to do their job, and refer the employee to the Office of Diversity. If the employee does not disclose abuse, encourage and watchful waiting. Continue assess and document performance issues. Address performance issues with disciplinary action if need be. Continue to reduce the stigma in the workplace and maintain open communication with the employee. Consult with your HR manager. If performance requires disciplinary action, document as you always do, using fact-based assessments. Again, consult with your human resource manager. Other considerations. Ask the frontline supervisors report concerns to you instead of talking with the employee directly. Frontline staff may not understand the nuances of the drug policy. Be as clear and as distinct as possible when discussing the policy. Labor relations and unions, consult with your HR manager. They will conduct these conversations on your behalf. What if another employee is concerned about a coworker? Listen to the concerns and take them seriously. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. But now it's management that will address the situation. Take control of the situation. Ensure that other staff don't get involved or you risk muddying the waters. Keep it confidential. Conduct regular check-ins with the employee using fact-based assessments. Case examples. Ben, a night nurse. A routine review of medical data showed that a particular individual, Peter, had a pattern of experienced seizures only when Ben was on duty. Each time Peter experienced a seizure, he was giving a PRN medication by Ben. You've also noticed that Ben consistently calls out sick on Mondays. Assess the situation. You were assigned Ben to a different night shift to monitor medication administration closely on Ben's shift. Ben reports that an individual, Max, has trouble sleeping and needs a PRN medication. Other staff do not notice this about Max. Upon further review, you find a disproportionate amount of PRN medications administered on Ben's shifts as compared to the rest of the staff. You ask supervisors to double count medications after Ben's shift. The result? You consult with your human resource manager. You suspect that Ben is documenting PR medications but is not administering them. Human Resources meets with Ben. He is ultimately terminated. Another case example. Harriet. A shift nurse reports to nurse management that Harriet appears unfocused lately and is not making sense. She seems spacey and distracted. A review of document logs show that Harriet has failed to complete the proper shift documentation, and in one example, Harriet documented information in the wrong medical record. She used to be excellent at documentation. There are also some reports from coworkers that Harriet is agitated and is difficult to work with, especially in the morning shift. Assess the situation. Ask supervisors to make random checks on Harriet's shifts and vary the times to assess her performance. Supervisors report that Harriet frequently comes in late on morning shift and is out of it. Do a visual check of medications and ask that more than one person checks the controlled drug count. The counts are accurate. Keep in mind, accurate drug counts do not mean drugs have not been stolen. Ask a supervisor who knows her well to conduct regular check-ins to see how she's doing. The result? During one of these regular check-ins with Harriet, she reveals that she has been abusing opioids and is way over her head. She doesn't know what to do. You approach her with compassion and refer her to the Employee Assistance Program for support and help. You consult with your HR manager.
Thank you, Paul. Listen, Paul just gave you all some great information. He gave some great examples. As a matter of fact, I want you to just take some of those examples and stick them in your toolkit. So if you run across it, you have some examples. Please know you have a partner in this. You have partners, I should say partners. You have your supervisor, your manager. You have the Human Resources Division. You have the Office of Diversity. And the best of all is the Employee Assistance Program. I know I'm going to give you that number in a minute, but I want you to know that Employee Assistance Program is really your best tool. It's your frontline tool. So if you go to the next slide, we're going to talk about a little bit the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is key. It's possible that someone who's using opioids may also have a disability. They may need an accommodation. What is the accommodation? Listen, I'm talking about reasonable accommodation under the ADA, which is decided on, or which is talked about as having a disability. So you as a supervisor, you're going to say, I notice that you're doing XYZ. Is there anything you need to do or anything I need to do to help you do your job? What kind of tools do you need? That's an okay question for you to ask. I want you to ask that question. It's the beginning of an interactive dialogue. I don't want you to assume that someone has a disability. If the employee discloses it, that's fine. They're telling you, you're not assuming it. Advise them to contact the Office of Diversity. The Office of Diversity is the key unit that handles all disability accommodation needs. The information is kept confidential. Believe me, this is not complicated at all. If you have questions, you want to call 617-624-7530. Someone in that office is going to pick up the phone and talk to you as a supervisor or a manager, but you want to actually refer your staff to this office. The reasonable accommodation, I kind of put a pin in that a minute ago. What is a reasonable accommodation? It has to be reasonable. The accommodation you give has to be reasonable. We all ask for the gold standards, but sometimes the silver works as long as we're giving someone the tools to do the essential function of their job. What is the essential functions? When you say essential functions, I am talking about the job the person or the staff person was hired to perform. So if someone was hired to be at their desk at 8:30, then they need to be there at 8:30. They can't ask me for an accommodation to come in at 9:30. We can give them tools to help them once they get in at 8:30, such as using one of their allowed breaks. So think about that. That's what the accommodation is. It's a tool. You're providing furniture. You're giving someone permission to use their allowed, agreed upon break time. If they need to take a few minutes extra to go to the bathrooms many times a day, then that's an accommodation. Family Medical Leave Act, I am not even going to try and explain that to you because that's not my lane, but I want you to know that staff, they have a right to request family medical leave so that they can take time off to handle the issues that have come forward because of this opioid dependency. You want to contact Human Resources. They're the only ones in the agency that can give information on the FMLA. We can refer them, but we should not answer the question. So please send folks to Human Resources for any information on FMLA. Now, here's some important numbers for you. Where do you get more information? That's the greatest question there is. I want you to take that Employee Assistance Program number and put it somewhere. It's at the back of your head. Just put it somewhere that everybody can see it. Because even if someone doesn't want to disclose that they have a problem, they will look at that number and know to call it. It is 877-237-0572. I want to say that again. The Employee Assistance Program number, 877-237-0572. Use this number when you think your staff needs help. Believe it or not, when your coworkers, your friends need help, they work with you, give them this number. And of course, There's the Office of Diversity. You want to have all these numbers at hand, 617-624-7530. That's the Office of Diversity, 617-624-7530. Why would you call the Office of Diversity? It's because of the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Someone may need a reasonable accommodation. Okay? Human Resources number, great number, 1-800-393-9324. I'm going to say it again, 1-800-393-9324. You want to use that number when in doubt. We have resources for you here listed. There's a DPH response to the opioid epidemic in Mass. If you want to educate yourself, go into that link. There's also State Without Stigma campaign. This link is listed for you. It's a long link, so I'm not going to keep repeating it. It's there for you. But here's another number I want you to have on your toolkit. Put it somewhere over your head, in your office somewhere. That's the Massachusetts Substance Abuse Information and Education Helpline. Important number, 1-800-327-5050, 1-800-327-5050. There's also resources for family and friends, allies in recovery. That's listed there as well. The link is very easy. It's alliesinrecovery.net. Then there's Learn to Cope. You want to look at that link. It's learntocope.org. Cope.org. Great information, great link. You want that. It's a links to additional trainings. You want to make sure you look at Ben Clough's training, great training. I just want all of you all to educate yourself, because when you make a great faith effort to educate yourself, you'll be educating your staff. And guess what? It's free. So take the advantage of it, okay? Now, if you have any questions, here's my email. Make sure you email. It doesn't matter what kind of questions you have. Any questions, I will get back to you. So my email address is Lorraine, LORRAINE .Woodson, WOODSON @state.ma.us. Now that you have my email address, I look forward to hearing from you, and I truly thank you, and I thank Courtney and all those folks who asked me to participate in this very important initiative. Have a good day.